Paul here from My Perfect Failure, helping you turn your failures into successes and your setbacks into opportunities. What if the key to personal transformation isn't outside of you, but within your own brain and body? In today's episode of My Perfect Failure, I sit down with Todd Nyholm, a renowned expert in somatic therapy and the author of What the Bleep Brain. Todd has spent years helping people reconnect their mind, body and emotions, showing them how to shift their thought patterns and create lasting change to transform their lives. Todd shares how simple daily techniques can help you overcome stress, find alignment and supercharge your life, whether you're struggling with challenges or simply looking to reach new levels of success. We also dive into the power of neuroplasticity, how to make self-improvement fun, and why What the Bleep Brain is more than just a book, it's a toolkit for transformation. Ready to rewire your brain and body for the better? Tune in now for an enlightening conversation with Todd Nyholm.
Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today we have a returning guest, so I'm super excited for this. So my guest today is a somatic therapist who through personal experience has discovered the undeniable relationship between mind and body. His Nytality Method offers people the solutions they need to live a healthier and happier life. He is also the author of the new book, What the Bleep Brain. So a very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Todd Nyholm. How are you, Todd?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to come back and talk to you and talk more about the book and brain retraining methods.
Well, I'm excited. You're prolific because the last time we spoke, we were trying to timeline that for the last time we spoke, probably a couple of years ago now. I think you had another book that you just written. I think that one was Our Brain, Why Do You Trouble Me So Much? So you're a busy guy.
Yeah, I keep on writing and making videos, trying to teach as fast as I can and trying to find the best ways to do it too.
Well, I think books. So when you create books, is it a learning experience for you? Not just I guess the book creation, but I guess you're having to go in deep. You're having to potentially do some research. So I'm imagining even that it's quite a rich experience for you also.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge to try to put everything down in a way that a lot of people can understand. And sometimes I have a tendency to talk at this level and I need to break it down to here and that whole thing.
So I guess it's put it into layman's terms. So people like me can understand and make the most from the book and take away practical tips that we can use.
Yeah, and to order it in such a way that it's easy, so that it flows, so that it's a fun, rich experience for you, so you don't feel like you're beating your head against a wall trying to figure out what I'm talking about. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I wanted to ask a question actually. So when I read out your bio, part of it I read somatic therapist. So can you explain what a somatic therapist is?
Sure. So somatic refers to the body. So we're working through the body, just to get different experiences for the client, right? So if I'm working with someone, I'm actually going to touch them, work on their body to get to their mind, to get to their brain, to get to their emotions. And so it's not a really popular term yet, but more and more people are using it.
Okay, cool. So part of your treatment, when you're working with your client, it's going to be a physical in-person experience because you're connecting the mind and the body. And as you referenced, the somatic experience there is a physical engagement.
Yeah, definitely. So if they see me in the clinic, I'm going to work with their body directly. If I'm teaching a class, like with the methods that are in the new book, they're working with their body directly. It's kind of a meditative experience, but it's definitely embodied. So everything I'm trying to do is kind of through the body in the lens of like now and now experience.
Okay, okay, lovely. So just to recap, for anybody that hasn't listened to our first conversation, which I think was some time ago, because that was like episode 125, and I think I'm about 169, sorry, 269 or 270 now. So that possibly people haven't listened to that particular episode. So maybe just to give a recap to how you found yourself in this space where you're connecting the mind and the body, because it's more impactful in terms of our overall well-being.
Sure. When I was a kid, I had some significant health problems, so chronic health issues that I was trying to solve. And I didn't know it until I was about 40 that I had Lyme disease and a bunch of other tick-borne infections.
Yeah.
Also, when I was a kid, I went through some real trauma with basically a serial killer that lived in my neighborhood. So trying to figure out some of the mental and emotional stuff and the physical stuff together really combined to this place where if you work with your body, mind, and emotions together, you can really change your experience of how you feel and your health and all of that. So it's been a lifelong journey since I was
Yeah.
probably 5 till now.
Okay, wow, that is a journey. So in terms of you discovering a lot of the, I guess, the treatments and the modalities that you're using, did you discover them from your own curiosity, or were you having therapy yourself, which led to you, I guess, broadening your curiosity in terms of how you could take this for your own personal development?
Yeah, so both ultimately. So when I was young, I was talking to different doctors trying to figure out what was wrong. And I probably went through 50 or 60 who couldn't do a lot for me.
Yeah.
And certainly I
Wow.
went through
If you're
therapy as
60.
well. Yeah. I mean, I went through a lot. And by the time I found one who could, he's like, okay, I think I know what happened. Let's do some more testing. And then we went through it. So I definitely have been through some of that, as well as, therapy for some of the other experiences with talk therapy, plus my own curiosity and just ability, like desire to dig through everything I could find.
And when did you get to the point where you found that there was a strong connection between the mind and the body in terms of how you could treat yourself, but also how other people could develop and have more improved lives?
Yeah, even when I was like 9 or 10, I can remember sitting in the backyard doing like a meditative process. I didn't know that's what it was, but I could sit back there and just put myself into a different brain state and I would feel better. And once I figured out I could do that, I was like, what is that? And I'd ask everyone that I knew, and no one I knew what that was. And so it kind of sparked that journey all the way back then. But you can get in this different space where the pain kind of goes away and your brain calms down. And I just kind of somewhat innately tripped over that, I think.
Okay, okay. And that experience in terms of you understood that there was something going on here, even if you didn't know quite what it was, the curiosity even that led you to think, I need to explore this. I guess your curiosity potentially grew.
Yeah, definitely. And I could see this is the thing that's helping.
Yeah.
Nothing else is helping. So I just got like obsessed with it. I'm going to figure this out or
Mhm.
die trying. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a
yeah.
good thing to get obsessed with when it relates to our own well-being. It's probably the best thing to get obsessed with. There's so many other things that we shouldn't get obsessed with, like computer games and spending too much time watching TV and lots of other, like, drinking lots. There's lots of other things, but anything that relates to well-being, to our well-being, what a good thing to get obsessed with.
Yeah, it's certainly been valuable and changed my life and
Yeah.
changes my life every day still.
Okay. Okay. So another something else that I referenced in the bio that I read out is Nytality Method. So you've developed your own methodology, and potentially it's encompassing some of what we've covered. But the people that are not familiar with you, and I will put your website and links to this in the show notes, but would you be able to maybe expand around what that is, what that entails?
Sure. Over all those decades of working through things, I kind of made a system to help myself, to kind of get myself better. And I made it more and more systematic as I took different things from different places, plus my own training for my business, yoga methods, and I kind of packaged it and put it together in a way that, plus, some of my own like ways of doing things into a method that made my health better, that I can use to make myself feel really good during the day. And so I kind of just systematized it, put it all together, and that's what I'm writing about. And I'm trying to teach in digital courses. So I try to make it simple so people could walk step by step through it.
It must be interesting and maybe gratifying as well when you know something has worked, because when something works for you, that's great plus exciting. But it must be gratifying to put that out and create something which other people can benefit from as well. Because I think it's very easy to suffer in silence where we have these challenges and we just don't know where to go. And to your point that you referenced earlier, we can try any number of different treatments and different systems, and not all of them are going to work for us. So it must be wonderful for you to create your methodology and then start helping other people that may, similar to you, they may have gone through 50, 60 different modalities and they've just not been able to recover from or treat whatever they're looking to remedy.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of my favorite things to help people that couldn't get help anywhere else. And I have people that drive halfway across the country to see me, because there's things that I can do for them that like they couldn't find with any doctors or therapists, because it's just a different way of getting about it. So I love doing that for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's another great thing is always, I think everybody watching or listening to this, if we can find something we love doing, well, that's almost like that is the holy grail. Just doing some research around this, and you've kind of alluded to it. So your new book, What the Bleep Brain. So that was years in the making. So a lot of the ideas and maybe not the concepts, but a lot of I guess the narrative to put this together was birthed at a young age. Can you maybe expand around that?
Yeah, so I mean, really, the methods in there I've been working on since I was probably 10 or 11. And I needed to work with them on myself and then working with clients and then teach them to a small group to make sure it worked with people of different ages and different races and, different backgrounds to make sure it worked. And then I put that all together into the methods that are in that book, which lead to other methods, which lead to other ones. So I tried to, like I said, make it a logical linear system so that people could find their way through it. But yeah, it's been decades in the making to get to that point.
So that's interesting to have something that has been in it's been in your system, it's been in your system for years, but to be able to keep it there and actually create the book, because I think there's lots of us that we have these ideas that we want to create, put out into the ether. Some might be a book, some might be a song, some might be a painting. I guess it can be different things. But was it difficult to go back to all the various years that have gone by and then pull everything together to create the book?
Not really. I can focus pretty well, like in one direction and hold it. And so that part wasn't difficult. What's difficult is putting it out there so that people see me. That's the part that's a little tricky for me, is like, hey, I made these cool methods. They've absolutely changed my life, and put them out in front of people. That's more of what I trip over. Just it feels weird to like seek attention on something I've made.
So I listened to something that you said earlier, and I definitely suffered from this when I started the podcast. It's that imposter syndrome, when we've got something valuable to say, sometimes we second guess ourselves because I don't know, we're not Oprah, or we're not somebody that's been out there for years and years and years and has I guess the stature. And obviously what you've done, what you've created over the years is phenomenal. You've written a number of different books, so it's all there, but sometimes we have to convince ourselves. And the piece that I watched, which was very interesting, you talked about imposter syndrome, but you've used your methodology to kind of navigate beyond it, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, and that was like a really big piece I needed, because I kept running up against that imposter syndrome and trying to talk about something that I thought was so brilliant, like my own sense of self. And so I had to I'm like, wait a second, I have methods that can help me do this. So I just reworked them a little bit. So I'm like, oh, I can get around this and make myself comfortable doing it.
That must be brilliant, where I can use my own methods to navigate these problems. Like you, I would have to go and see somebody, but you can actually think, well, I've got this, I do this. This is what I can, as you say, I can tweak it a little bit, and then I'm good to go. So is that what you do periodically? So if you come up against a challenge like that or something else, you can dip into the book, or well, I guess there's other books you've written as well.
Yeah, when I run into something, often for a couple hours, I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. And then I sit down with myself and I calm myself and I say, wait a second, I already kind of know how to do X and I already kind of know how to do Y. How do I apply it to Z at this point? And that's worked pretty successfully for me.
Tell me about the title of the book. That intrigues me.
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out what was going on with my brain because some of the infections I had, they can really affect how your brain function is. And I'm like, something is not right here and I can feel it. And that question that was in the back of my mind was like, what the heck is going on, brain? Or what the bleep, brain? What's happening to me, And so it was just a funny way to kind of point that out. It's like, what is my brain doing? How can I change how it functions to get more of what I want? And so what the bleep brain came out of that.
Okay, wonderful. So is that when you that kind of narrative around that, is that are you almost not challenging the brain, but you're, I don't know, almost having a conversation with, I can't think of the best way to phrase it, but it's almost that you're engaging, you're challenging your thoughts or challenging the brain to, if something doesn't feel or fit, you can think, well, actually, this is an opportunity for me to challenge my brain or think differently. There's probably a more technical term where you 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 can try and work out what I'm trying to say, but hopefully you can pick the bones of what I'm attempting to glean from the title.
Sure. I think it's a little bit like you're living in a house, but you don't really know where everything is and how it works. And so for me, it's like, how do I get inside myself and find where all the switches are, where the lights are, where the kitchen is, where the bathroom is, and then learn how to use everything properly. So we're kind of taught to like put all our attention outside ourselves. We don't have enough going inside to figure out how everything works. And so if you can figure out a way to do it, get a method to do it, I think you can find where the switches are and where the bathroom is and where everything is, and then use your house more properly because you're already in it. You're there all the time, but it's like the lights are off and you're not really paying attention to it.
Okay.
So it's like a dance with yourself almost.
Yeah. Okay. So for people that are listening now and they're thinking, okay, this sounds very interesting to me, and I'm keen to maybe work more in alignment with my brain. Are there signs that they can maybe capture when maybe they're out of alignment and actually they should be using the methodologies that you've got in your book? And again, I'll put a link to the book in the show notes.
Yeah, I think, when you feel distant from yourself and you don't feel like you are yourself, when you're kind of distracted and all over the place, I tend to think that's when you're a little bit off at how your function could be working, So that's, to me, it's like, wait, I don't feel like I'm myself here. I don't feel like I'm quite where I should be. It's like often we're somewhere else mentally rather than here now. And that's a big, way of looking at how your brain is functioning in that regard.
Okay. And in relation to maybe your experience or maybe patient's experience, or I guess it could be anybody, are these things that typically when we use maybe the Nytality method or we're using some of these techniques, are they things that are they techniques that we use do we use when we need to? Could that be, is it different for different people? So for me, could it be a daily thing where I'm able to go into your box of tools to support me on a daily basis? And for somebody else, it might be something that they look at weekly or monthly, just whenever they need to engage.
Yeah, I think ultimately, if you can get a toolbox that you use every day so that you practice with the tools, then when you need it later on, that can work really well. I like to do them daily just because it's in your day all the time. But if you do them weekly or you do them monthly, it's tricky to use a tool that you haven't used in 15 years, like all of a sudden when you need it, right? And so if you can spend 5 or 10 minutes a day, then like 12 hours later, you're like, oh, this is really easy for me because I've played with it every day for a while.
Okay, wonderful. So the book for people that are thinking, I'd like to know a little bit more about is it, obviously there's going to be text there, but I've had a look at some of your content online, and it seems like you've got images, so you've got aids for people to maybe engage some of the modalities that the book covers. So how should or how can people that purchase the book, how can they use it? What's the best way for them to engage with it and actually maximize the impact?
Yeah, I think the book is a good reservoir of the methods that you can kind of spend time working through, and there's charts in there. And if you learn that way, that's a really good way to do it. What I'm trying to do with the videos is give people who are a little bit more video or
Yeah,
audio oriented something to use so that they fit together or so that you can put them together. Because some of it's a little tricky. It's like, how do you get this to work? Because it's using your own body and your own mind in a way you probably haven't done before.
yeah,
So the tendency is to trip over it. So I'm just trying to give as many tools as you can, and whatever way you find into it is great.
yeah. And so I've got so many questions coming to my head. So in terms of a starting place, so me as an example, my starting place to maybe try and remedy something that I'm working on, might it be different from your starting place in terms of the modality that I would maybe look to start with?
Yeah, I think ultimately any way that you can find an easy door in is the way
Mm,
to do it, right? So I kind of like books because, my mind works that way.
mm,
But videos are really helpful for some people and audio. But ultimately, if you can solve a problem that you have, that even if it's small at the beginning, then that'll lead you in because we want it to be useful in some way for your life. So
yeah,
whatever door you can go through, that's perfect.
yeah, okay. And in terms of the door we go through, do we work that out based on what feels right? Say what the intuition feels like.
I think that's the best way. Like if you have
Yeah.
a sense to do this, then by all means do that. Even if I said, hey, probably the best way is this, but you feel this is the way to
Mm,
go the way that you feel at the
mm.
beginning, because it's probably the door that's going to work best for you.
So in terms of the world we live in today, the world we live in today is far more chaotic and far more. Well, I'm actually guessing here, but I would hazard a guess and say the world we live in now. Obviously, we've got more amenities, there's more things available, but to me, it seems a little bit more stressful because we've got all these things. We live in a world which is 1,000 miles an hour. There's no respite. So,
Right.
in terms of looking after ourselves and using some of these tools that you've put together, is it something that, in your opinion, that we should be doing anyway? Because sometimes we don't even know when we're stressed. We don't even know when we're burnt out. We don't even know when we've got some emotional baggage that is there. We just carry on, and I guess we carry on at our own peril. What are your thoughts around just having these daily practices or practices that are reasonably consistent anyway?
Yeah, I think so, because life is just difficult. It's hard for a lot of people. There are a lot of traumatic experiences. There are a lot of things that we don't see that are happening that are affecting us ways that we often don't
Mhm.
perceive. And so to me, it's the best starting point for just life in general. Like, how do
Mhm.
you settle yourself out so that you can have a better life experience? Because most of the people I see, they're sort of suffering their mind or they're suffering their emotions. And if you kind of go through that every day, you can settle that down. So you just feel 5% better every day and then 10% better every day. And as life gets more complicated, you have a toolbox to use because you've
Mhm.
been practicing it all the time. Even if it's a minute or two a day, it's going to put you in a much better place
So
overall.
when you see a client, when they come to see you because they know that they need some type of intervention, at what point do they need to get to actually come to see you, or does it vary? The reason I asked the question because I'm just curious. I'm curious. That's the first point, but I'm thinking about other people that are watching this or listening to this that might be thinking, yeah, yeah, I'd like to, I'd like to consider something like this, but maybe that maybe they might think that I'm well, or maybe they think actually I'm not that bad to engage this. So maybe you might have some thoughts around that.
Yeah, I think there's like two ways to look at that. And one is, you have some kind of problem you're trying to resolve and you're tripping over it and it's painful and you think, okay, this could be helpful. And maybe someone mentions it to you and that's a good introduction into it. I think the other one is less that you have a problem to solve, is that you can function better. So you're like, hey, I could supercharge how I'm doing and I can make my experience way better. So it's not always that you have to fix something. Sometimes you're like, okay, I got this car, it runs really well. I'd like to put a supercharger on it, get
Mm.
some detailing on there, put some nice paint on it because you want to just have more fun or more experience. And both are possible. One leads into the other. So if you're struggling with something, you can kind of fix that. And once that's doing better, then you can move yourself into that sort of supercharge and have a better life experience way. So I think for anybody who finds it interesting, there's going to be something of value in terms of how you put it into your life.
Yeah. There's something I've written down here that I wanted to ask you about is how can we change our thinking patterns? And maybe when do we know, and maybe there's not a definitive answer to this, but when would we know that we maybe should think about changing our thinking patterns?
I would say it this way. You probably should assume that you do need to in some way. Like there's a better way that it can function for everybody. So sort of like working out is good for everybody, or eating a little better is good for everybody. That's probably a better way of thinking about it. I like working through the body because if you can get your attention here in your body, your thoughts will start to change. Like going after your thoughts directly is hard because they're ephemeral and they move so quickly. You don't see most of them. They're just flying by in the routine. So you can use the body to sort of break up the pattern and then come back to the thoughts later and work on sort of that software in your mind.
Okay, that makes sense. So to use our body to help with thought patterns and I guess emotional feelings, is that stuff like exercise?
Exercise is probably the most obvious way, and that's a great way to do it. It gets you started. There's lots of ways you can do it, though. When you start to learn how your body is connected to your mind through your brain, you can do all kinds of different things with your body to change how you feel. So like some of the methods I have, if I went to the park and went for a walk for a half hour, I could take myself from feeling kind of down to make myself almost high, like just feeling wonderful. And I'm just walking and I'm doing the methods sort of in my mind and in my body, but I'll feel just fantastic at the end of that.
Okay, wonderful. So is it kind of like, or can it be for us? Can it be trial and error? So when we want to feel, because we all have moments where we don't feel great. Mine, particularly in the mornings when I get up and I'm thinking, what's going to happen? What's the plan for the day ahead? How's it going to go? And maybe I'm thinking about challenges and so I need to get myself going. So for me, I don't do this all the time, but I should do it enough, more even, is to your point, exercise. So it can be get on a bike and do maybe 40 minutes on that, and then I can listen to an audio book or something positive, and it really does put me in a different space. So those are sort of things that we can experiment with, and then we would just, I guess, hopefully we would isolate the different practices that I guess we're vibing with.
Yeah, I would almost think of it like a lab experiment. My life is like this. This is the times that I struggle with. If I add exercise here, what does that do? If I add heat therapy over here, say with a sauna, what does that do? If I do these meditations at this time, how do I feel? So like I get up in the morning before I get out of bed, I do a series of methods that I made so that I'm feeling great before I even put my feet on the ground. But that took me years to figure out how to do, and now I'm trying to teach it. And so like, I would really make it like an experiment. Like, how does this go? And then track it a little bit. Do I feel better? Do I feel worse? What was helpful here? What tripped me up there? And kind of like use yourself as your own experiment.
Okay. Over the years, because you've been crafting this from a child, you reference. So for you, is it a constant evolution? So if I speak to you next year, might you have added different techniques and tools to your armory?
Absolutely. Like I'm always working on stuff. And just a couple of weeks ago, I found a new way of addressing the corpus callosum, which is the tissue between the two hemispheres of your brain and the limbic system, because I had heard something about how it gets shut down under trauma. And so I added to some of my methods, and then I found a way of almost setting the circuit breaker off so that it made this big difference in how I'm feeling. And that was just 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I never stopped working on it.
Do you find it almost like an experiment? Well, I think you've used the term experiment, but do you find it like a challenge when something is maybe amiss?
Yeah, I definitely see it as a challenge.
Yeah.
Sometimes at first it's irritating. I'm like, oh, I thought I had this all worked out right.
Yeah.
You're like, no, there's something more there. And then it's a challenge to make something better.
And then it just needs to be tweaked.
Right. Or it needs to be addressed in a different way. Or maybe I came at it from this way and I need to come at it from this way. And, and that makes a big change for me.
Okay. And would that be the same with clients? Because all clients would be different. You saw me, I might be different, or I'm sure I would be different in terms of the support that I would need from you. So is that the same type of scenario with a client where in terms of how they're going to remedy whatever they need to remedy, you would experiment with them or get them to experiment and really get them to dig into what's really going to help them?
Yeah, absolutely. Each person's different, and I'm trying to help them in a way that gets them the best bang for their buck or
Mm,
address the problem. Sometimes they think the problem isn't necessarily what the problem is. So sometimes it's just reframing or getting a different perspective or getting a little bit of a shift.
mm,
And so some of that's conversation, some of that's, working with their body. Sometimes it's tools, sometimes it's supplements.
mm.
Usually I'm going to use all those things together to try to build like a synergistic model to help them get
Yeah,
where they want to go.
yeah. And I guess when they leave you, when they're independent during the day, they can test these things out. So to your point, they can experiment, and hopefully, when they come back to see you the following week or whenever it is, they've come back to you to speak to you with some interesting insight to what they've uncovered during that week where they haven't seen you.
Yeah, so hopefully something got better. They got something to play with, or like nothing changed at all. So if
Yeah.
nothing changes at all, then I know, okay, we got to come at this in a totally
Okay.
different way,
Okay.
which is fine. It's just trying to find the right way to do it. If I have 90 ways of helping them, sometimes I need number 87 because that's what they need most, where most people need one or two or three or whatever the order might be to get them
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. So for people that are keen to buy the book, I'm just surmising here that whenever we do these things, they shouldn't expect a quick fix. I'm assuming it's a process that you go through. And actually, to me, it's quite it feels, not that I've done this, but it feels like a quite a therapeutic process where you get to really understand yourself, your body, your mind, more clarity. But it takes time. There's a process to be engaged.
Yeah, I think for some people it takes a while. For me, like I've been on this journey for a long time, decades. But I have seen a few people. They read the book, and over 2 weeks, they got a big change just from
Wow.
practicing it that quickly.
Yeah.
But I think for most people, it's gonna take a little time and a little practice, and it's like cooking a stew. So you just take time and let it simmer for a while and see what
Yeah.
comes out of it.
Yeah. And I assume that we should give ourselves patience and try and have fun with it.
Yeah, like make it a game, make it
Yeah.
playful, or like a dance. It should be enjoyable. And if you make it work, you're going to engage kind of the wrong part of your brain for what we want. We want this to be artistic and fun and kind of the thing that is different than everything else you're doing. So you don't feel like you're at work doing this. Although some of it, you have to do some work. It
Mm,
shouldn't feel like you're at work.
okay. So when people get the book and they read the book, so I'm thinking of the distinction between reading the book and needing you or someone like you. So when they read the book, is it a process, is it an opportunity for them to identify things and work on things? And for some, they might get to the point where they might think, actually, knowing what I know now after reading the book, I probably need to work with someone like Todd directly because I've identified the books helped me identify some things that are probably beyond me trying to deal with it individually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a starting point. It can get you moving. And for some things, it can maybe solve all the problems you have. And for other
Mm.
things, it might just illustrate, like, oh, I got this problem over here. And getting the right help is crucial. And, like being kind with yourself and, being careful with who you work with so that you get the right person. That's
Yeah,
fantastic. Any tool you need, any person you can work with, that'll be helpful. I'm all for it.
yeah. Okay, lovely. So I've written down a few words which I didn't know what they mean. I should know what this. I think I should know what some of these mean, but I thought while you're here, I definitely want to ask you. So neuroplasticity.
Yes. So there was a time people thought that your brain couldn't change. Like after you reached a certain age, it was just
Yeah.
done. But the truth is, your brain is constantly sort of remodeling with different connections as it moves neuron to neuron. The information and the signal changes how things pattern. And so if you pattern things right, you can get this plasticity in your brain that changes and sends signals in different way. And it's fundamental to my work. Like, how do you get the brain to change? There's a number of ways to do it through the body is great. You can do it with different thought practices or
Mm.
EMDR, things like that. But you're actually more plastic than you think, which means you can change more than you might believe at this point.
Okay. So if somebody is maybe they've got a career promotion, or maybe actually they're looking to leave, I guess, a field and looking to go into another field, which might be a little bit more demanding, a little bit more challenging. They've got to maybe be a little bit more gun ho than they had to in their last job because they maybe they're in their last job for 10 years, so they've got an element of comfort. Can neuroplasticity help with I don't know, just engage in a different, maybe a more dynamic part of themselves where they're more in touch with their learning, and maybe they're showing up maybe more than they had to do in a job where they've been 10 years and everybody knows them and they've got that degree of comfort.
Definitely. I think if you understand how it works, you realize you can change with the right exercises or
Mhm.
practices to get where you want to go. So you're not really stuck. You can find a way through, which is often like small, easy exercises. Like you'll hear about sports stars talking about getting on the court and closing their eyes and shooting 1,000 baskets in their head. Or my piano teacher used to say that. He's like, don't get to the piano, just go out to the park with the music and play it in your mind. And you're
Yeah.
using that neuroplasticity as a tool. So in the example of getting a new job where you have to do something that you haven't done before, if you start really small and work your way towards it, you can use that plasticity to set up your brain and the signals that you're going to use to get where you want to go.
Is that, is there any relationship with visualization with that?
Absolutely. It's
Okay.
one of the great tools for it. Like you can do it as a visualization. You can do it even moving your body around. So you can just like use your hands when you're playing the keyboard. Even though I don't necessarily have an image in my mind, I'm using my body to work through the music, which isn't visual, but auditory. But I'm not actually hearing it in the environment. I'm hearing it inside. So definitely visualization is a big part of that.
I guess it's something that we could all look at. And with these types of tools that we can use, I guess we can do them as often or as infrequent as we want. I guess the more often, the better.
Yeah, I think the more often and the more playful. So if you get to the point where you're beating yourself up with it, you're going to kind of lock down the mechanism a little bit. So in a lot of ways, I think it's better to do 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there than 4 hours where you're exhausted and frustrated at the end. Now there's a time for that, but in a lot of ways, like if you can make it playful so it takes on a life of its own, you don't fight yourself, which is
Yeah.
where a lot of people get stuck.
Okay. So just in terms of visualization and some of these practices, but I think for some of us, and I think even me at times, sometimes it feels a little bit abstract because we live in a world today where everybody wants, it's like we live in that microwave world where you put something in and you get the ping after 3 or 4 minutes and it's done. Just for people to really embrace this and actually give it the required effort that is needed, should we be patient and just really maybe have fun, but maybe be serious about whatever our goals are, whatever we want to achieve, or whatever the changes we want in our life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need a system, like a system that works so that, every day I do this exercise for 5 minutes, like at 8 in the morning, because it's right before the shower, so
Mhm.
that it's easy enough that you don't have to force yourself to do it, but it's in your environment enough that you don't stop. So you
Yeah,
need kind of that both that like discipline to make it happen, but also make it engage you enough that you want to do it. So you're not, like I said, running into a wall and burning yourself out. But you do have to practice it and you do have to like work on it and you do have to make a few decisions that no matter what, I'm going to do this. But I think the key is like making that thing you can do every day. So that's why I keep
okay,
breaking it down into small pieces. Like,
okay,
I can do 5 minutes. I don't always know I can do 55 minutes. And then the days you do want to do 55 minutes, just run with it. And then next year, the next day, you just do 5 minutes again, or even 2 minutes, whatever it might be.
okay. Fabulous, fabulous. So for people that want to know where they can get the book, where would the best place for them to get the book?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. It's on, I think, 12 bookstores. So it's available as I can make it.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, well, I'll grab some links for you and we'll put them on the show notes. And just in terms of people that may want to work with you, maybe they want to find out a little bit more about some of the modalities that you use and how they can maybe talk to you and see whether there might be an opportunity to collaborate or work together. Is there a best place to contact you?
Yeah, I would go to my website, just nytality.com, and send me an email. I'll get a chance to see it. And I have a part-time assistant that'll help make sure that it gets in front of me so that I can find a good way. I'm also building a mailing list so I can talk more
Okay.
directly to people, get more direct access so that I can make videos directly for you if you have
Oh,
questions.
amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
And I have to ask it because I have to ask you, sorry, because every time I speak to you, you've got another book. So I know this has only just come out, but do you have any other more books that you're thinking of at the moment?
Yeah, so this book I just put out is the first, third of the method that I want to teach with that method. So it'll probably take me 2 or 3 more books to finish
Oh,
fleshing that
really?
out. And that's only one. I have 21 total systems, and this is just teaching one of them. So
You've
I'm
got
trying to figure out the best
21
way.
systems.
And they work in different ways. So I think that maybe someone needs number 6 or whatever. They have different names. There are different ways of getting at it. Like some are based on shadow work, and some are based on different meditations, and some are based on like using your body in different ways. So a lot of ways I was trying to figure out, how do I reach everybody that I work with in a way that'll touch them? So I'm kind of starting at the one I think is most obvious, and then just putting tools out for everybody.
So of all your 21 systems, do they all relate to connecting the mind and the body and getting those to be more cohesive?
Yeah, they all synergize around that idea of getting your emotions and your mind and your body more harmonious within your experience and your attention. So they come at it in different ways, but that's their goal of all of them.
Okay. So it's going to be a busy few years for you.
It is. But I love to, yeah, I do love it though. Like, and so for me, like, I'm frustrated that I can't go faster, because it takes me a while to edit or make the books or make the videos.
Yeah.
But they're so cool. I want to share them with everyone that I know. I'm like, oh, this is so helpful for me. How do I share it with these people and those people? So.
Yeah. I guess what would be great as well for anybody that gets the book, give you feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more feedback I get, the more I can tailor the tools to,
show how it's impacted their lives. It's been amazing talking to you, catching up again. I love the work you do. I find it fascinating how we can connect the body and the mind. I think I read somewhere that, or I saw somewhere that you mentioned that the body can be ignored, just in terms of how important it is and how it does impact us. Maybe you might just want to expand upon that. I did want to ask you around that.
Yeah, I think as a culture, we really have a lot of respect for the mind and the logical function of the mind. And so we spend a lot of time training it, but we don't really work with the body in the same way. And when we do, it's usually for aesthetics. Like, how do you get a 6-pack, or how do you get big muscles, or those kinds of things. But you can absolutely use your body in all kinds of cool ways to help your mind or your emotions or your lifestyle. And certainly looking good is great. And, of course, being fit and all that. But I don't think we put enough emphasis on how the body works with our sense of self and our consciousness, because you can absolutely use your body to make your consciousness bigger and your attention wider, and use that as a benefit rather than as something that's being pulled away from you.
Okay. So it just leads me to another question, actually. So if somebody, we all go through moments where we're anxious, we're stressed, we might have a meeting coming up, or we might be, I don't know, it could be a meeting, I guess is an obvious one. Are there things that we can do to mitigate that stress or control that stress with our body?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best ones is, in that example, if you're like 10 minutes before, if you can sit down or go for a little walk, and with your eyes, defocus them like you would a camera. So the tendency as you get more anxious is to get your field of vision really small like that. And if you can bring it out, even using your hands like this, and try to see out the sides of your eyes, that will change how your brain is functioning a little bit and calm the anxiety down. And it's easy to do. Like, once you have to practice it ahead of time, because if you try to do it right then, you won't have the skill to do it. But even right now, I can just like defocus and look at the light over here and the fan over there. And I don't know if you can hear it, my breath just slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways you can kind of like bring that down. And there's all kinds of tools like that.
Okay, wonderful. So is it kind of like taking the focus away from the stress that is there? Because I guess stress is an emotion. It's not, I guess it's another emotion. So is it diluting the energy of that stress and getting you to focus on something else?
Yeah, it's almost like in a natural environment, if someone attacked you with a sword or something, your attention focuses on them, and that's great at that moment. But most of us aren't fighting somebody with a sword, right?
Yeah.
We have this like bigger thing. And so if you take your eyes and you defocus them, it takes your brain and says, okay, we don't need to isolate everything into this one little picture, which tends to create anxiety. So it's just like reversing out the process so that you have some control over it.
Okay. And so clearly there's some amazing tools that people will glean from the book. So wonderful stuff. I've got all the links. I'll put those on the show notes. And I do have one last question, which is the recurring question. So if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, they can be alive or past, who would you invite?
So lately I've been learning more about YouTube because I want to move my work over there.
Yeah.
There's a company called Think Media, and the guy who runs it, his name is Sean.
Okay.
I would love to have Sean there. One of the people I really enjoy in the yoga space was a guy named Paramahansa Yogananda, who I think passed away in the 50s. I'd love to talk to him about yoga a little bit. you know, and probably, I think I said this last time too, but Gary Vaynerchuk, just as another way of like learning how to reach people better. Cause
Yeah, he's amazing.
I have a lot I want to do, but I don't know the best way to get it to people sometimes.
Yeah, he's like a tornado just in terms of his energy, his ideas. You know that if you spent a day with him, maybe even half a day with him, he would just transform our life because he's just so impactful, so engaging. He's honest but very positive, and yeah, yeah, he'd be up there for me as well, just because yeah, he's just very in what he does. He's the best. He's very transformative. So yeah, so hopefully we'll put some energy out there for that to happen.
That'd be cool.
So two of them could actually happen because two of them are alive, right?
They are, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You never know. Small world.
It could happen.
Todd, it's been amazing.
For me too.
Like the last time, and I'm looking forward to more discussions with you. I love, as I said, I love the work you're doing, and you do. I think it's really important. I think it's an area, in my opinion, that we're a little bit not you, but lay people like me, a little bit blind to it. So I think it's really impactful, important information that you're giving us. So thank you for that. And I look forward to having more conversations when you navigate through the 21 different levels that you're going to produce.
Yeah, I'd love to talk more about it. It's my favorite thing to talk about, and getting to chat with people that are interested in is wonderful. I appreciate getting to talk to you.
No, well, lovely. Well, I look forward to future conversations, and not hopefully, I'm sure that this book is going to be really impactful. So I look forward to hearing about how it's impacted people as well. So take care for now. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. If you're watching on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button because it really does help us grow the channel. Really keen to do that. And if you know anybody that needs help with stress, with anxiety, please do share this episode with them because this really is going to support them and really impact their lives. And your feedback is most welcome. So we're keen to hear about the things you like and equally the things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the feedback page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.